All right, moving right along here, we're now into another topic, which is stereotyping. You don't want to do that. You don't want to, like I said, lump 1,000 people into one big ball and say, I'm speaking to this ball. No, you're still talking to 1,000 individuals, uh, but you don't want to stereotype them. Stereotyping is creating an oversimplified image of a particular group of people, usually by assuming that all members of the group are alike. In other words, assuming your audience is homogeneous. Your audience is most likely going to be heterogeneous, of all differing beliefs, values, and that sort of thing. So we don't want to lump them all together and say, well, I know these people, they're of this age, so they believe this about politics and they believe this about morals. No, you can go very wrong when you start to stereotype. Um, now, another point to make is that auditory perception is always selective. Everything a speaker says is filtered through each audience member's frame of reference. Those things that I feel affect me are going to be the things that I listen to most closely. So I'm filtering it. Automatically, if something doesn't engage me, something doesn't affect my life, it's going to go right over, okay? Um, Remember that every speech contains two messages: the message you send to your audience and the message the audience receives. They are listening through their frame of reference, so they are all going to receive your message differently. You just want to find a way to speak to them so that the message you present can be interpreted closest to what you meant. Not an easy task. Audiences are egocentric. Audiences are all about themselves. They really don't care about you. They're there to hear something. So they care about what they're hearing. Pay attention to messages that affect them directly. Just as I said, they filter out what doesn't affect them directly. They take the approach, why is this important to me? And they should take that approach. Our time is valuable. If I would like to daydream during somebody's speech, I'll pick an appropriate time to daydream when I'm not interested in what you're saying. There are two implications of this for speakers. Listeners will judge a speech based upon their knowledge and beliefs, and speakers must relate their messages to an audience's existing knowledge and beliefs. So if they know what you're going to speak about and you know how they feel about that topic, then you can tailor your speech to them. So we talked about demographic analysis. We're talking about age, gender, racial, ethnic, and cultural background, religion, and another one I didn't mention before, but is very important, is group membership. People identify themselves partially by the company they keep. If I belong to a particular group, part of my identity is that group. Now, how do we analyze the situation? In other words, we talked about what the situation was. It's where you are when you're speaking. It's the temperature in the room. It's the noise that could be distracting. So we want to know, what is the size of the room and what is the size of the audience, number one. What is the physical setting? Am I on a stage speaking into a microphone to 1,000 people? Or am I sitting in a chair in front of everybody and they're sitting in chairs and we're kind of having a small meeting of a few people? We want to know what the audience disposition is towards the topic. We want to know what the audience's disposition is likely to be toward me, the speaker. and what is their disposition toward the occasion. So we have a lot of things to think about, and that's part of our analysis of the situation and of the audience. We're going to skip this section on questionnaires, which goes through, yeah, here we go. Skip on to 23. Use audience analysis information to adapt your speech to the audience during the preparation of the speech, but also a good speaker adapts to the audience during the presentation. So I have to watch you. I have to be a good listener. I can't just be focused on what I'm saying. I have to be focused on those nonverbal clues that you give me, like this, like leaning back and falling asleep. Those are things that tell me maybe you're not responding too well to my speech. Okay, now we're going to go on to this quiz. So, being audience-centered means a speaker must sacrifice what he or she really believes in order to get a favorable response from the audience. No, 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 that is false. Don't ever sacrifice your beliefs to please an audience. You may have to couch your language, you may have to tailor it a certain way, but you do not have to please all audiences. You certainly don't have to twist yourself into a pretzel to be just what the audience wants. I would never approve of that. Okay, audience analysis first comes into play after a speaker has chosen a specific purpose. No, no. You don't decide what the purpose is until you know who the audience is. Number 3, even when listeners pay close attention, they don't necessarily process a speaker's message exactly as the speaker intended. I said don't necessarily, they almost never process your speech the way you mean it to be processed. That's why you have to be very clear about what you're stating. Question 4. As a general rule, the larger your audience, the less formal your speech presentation should be. That's false. As a general rule, the larger your audience, the more formal your speech presentation is. Number 5, knowing how the physical setting might affect your listeners' receptivity to your ideas is an important factor in situational audience analysis. Absolutely true. You want to know if I can't be heard. Let's say nobody set up a microphone for me, but I'm all of a sudden in a room that is really long, and people decided to sit at the very back where nobody else is, and where they're probably not going to hear me. You need to know that ahead of time. You need to know whether to ask for a microphone. Now on question 6. The process of audience adaptation is over by the time a speaker starts delivering the speech. No, we just said you have to be listening and watching the clues that are given to you by your audience. So it does not, you are consistently and constantly adapting to the audience. Remember, the audience doesn't adapt to you. And the last question, number 7. Egocentrism means that audiences typically approach speeches by asking, why is this important for me? That's true. Audiences are egocentric. They are all about themselves. You, on the other hand, as the speaker, you're audience-centric. You're centered on the audience. You are all about the audience. All right? You're going to give up a little of yourself, perhaps a little of your personality, but not your morals, not your ethics, to make it a, how do I want to say this? To make the audience more comfortable with you. And you can learn how to do that. and we'll end right here.